everyone, how you doing? Today I want to show you my new marketplace asset, the status machine. It's basically the health and gameplay thing I always use for all of my games. And I'm going to show you that in real time, how fast it is to implement and how versatile this is. So what we're going to do, we create a top-down. We can also use third person, but I want to show you it's not the same as in the asset pack, because there's also a demo where everything is set up. So we also search here already for machine, right here, the status machine. So okay, we're here. This is a blank project, and now what we're going to do is we simply add this to the project, and as you can see here, we have the stat machine. If we're going around here, we have nothing, because this is a standard top-down thing. But all you need to do really is you go first to the class. Can be also your class, of course, you know, it's super easy to implement. We go to class settings and we find here parents, and we go here and we search core, and it's implemented. I'm not joking, everything is ready, and I'm going to show you this now. We go here and we go to status machine, we go to demo, and on the third person blueprints, this is the setup. You know, here's just some setup to test things. This is not how you properly do it, but we copy this, that's a HUD. Over here we go begin play, and what's important here is that you call to parent, because we have in the core class a little bit of a setup in the begin play, but we'll come to that in a second. So now we just plug in the HUD. As you can see here, this is really just the HUD. And now if I press start, as you can see here, we have our HUD. And now let's switch over to the demo level. You find that in Stat Machine Demo. And if I go in here now, this is the third person character that comes with the demo, but we switch this over now to top-down blueprints demo mode. Okay. We go here, and as you can see here, we have, and if you can read this here, I cannot change the camera right now. Okay, that was maybe the worst to pick, but if we can just go in here, as you can see, we get 10 damage. But because the blue one is a shield, we get actually shield damage. And I delete this because I imagine we're not going to see these in a second. So let's make this big. And now if we go here, if we go around here, minimum 1 health. So if I go in here, these are all like gameplay effects. As you can see here, this one makes me faster, so that's what I'm now very, very fast. And if we run through, you can see here we have the timing. Some of these also stack, so you can decide all that. I'm gonna show you that in a second. And actually, because it's easier to see, as you can see, everything works, right? Because of that, we're gonna switch actually back to the original one, because there you can see a little bit better what's going on. So we make this big, and as you can see here on the walls, we have a lot of stuff that you need to know, or that's good to know, you know, how things work, but I go to that in a second. Now let's go here. We get 10 damage. As you can see, the shield, the blue one, gets 10 damage, and you see also we have like a debug on the top left. But now let's say I get 50 fire armor, as you can see here. And now suddenly I just get 6.66 damage, right? But while I still have the armor and go here, I get 10 damage because you have different damage types, and you can specify your own damage types. You go to here, physical armor. I go here, 6 damage. If I go minus, I go 10. And now let's wait a few seconds for the plus armor go away, because now I have minus 50 armor, and I have 13 0.33 damage. So what you can also do is you can build in weaknesses and stuff like that. And now let's go to the gameplay effects. What you can easily do is say, okay, I get 100 more health and I get health regen. So now as you can see, we regenerate health. You go in here and you're faster. And this is one where you can also stack. As you can see here, we have different stacks and I go faster, faster, faster. And we have also dot damage, so damage over time. This is the fire, so you can see here. And that actually depends on the stack. So each stack adds more fire per second. As you can see here, I have now 10 stacks of fire and I get quite a lot of damage, right? And I'm dead. So, oh, and also when you're dead and everything, there's also options what's happening and stuff like this. And we have here other things, and the left click, it's just like a simple line trace to do some damage. And here in the top right, you can see what's happening: block, dodge, crit, and damage, right? So here, if I go in here now and say I want critical damage, now I can go here. And it doesn't work. Why does it not? Oh, no, okay. This is just critical damage, sorry. Critical chance is a different thing. So you can kind of like split it up. Like you can increase your critical damage, but also your damage chance. It's very bad. What the fuck? Why does it not work? Oh, okay. I think I know. So, crit chance and damage, whatever. Now you're here. Yeah, okay. Now you can see we have damage. If you press, let me explain. So, you press right click in this. It's just for demo purposes, but you press right click and you switch between damage types, and you can actually set up damage types to not be able to crit. For example, fire is set up to not crit. So if I have here, I will never make a crit. If I go here, I can crit. Okay, so that's important to know. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff. It goes quite in depth. All right, now let's take a look under the hood. First of all, in the demo level, as you can see, there's already a lot of information on the walls that you can read through, and you know how most of the things works, but you know, can never help to have like a little walkthrough, okay? So let's go to the demo folder. You can basically delete. This is in here too, but nothing of importance is in there really, right? So later on you can release it, delete it for a little bit more sleeker look of your system. Now, let's go to the core folder. First things first, we already took a little look at the BB character core, which is basically, you know, everything is combined here already, how it should work. If you don't want to use this as a parent class, what you need to do is you kind of need to copy everything in here over to your own character. What I really like about having it like this is you can also assign the same core class to your AI or whatever should get damaged, and keeps it everything nice and sleek. Also important to note is that here's basically all the systems. If you don't want any of these, like for example stamina, mana, you can delete them. If you need more, you can just add them. This is very nice. And important to note is if you set it as a parent class, I already did that like earlier, but I say it again, you need to make a call to parent, just so that all the components are initialized. Now, we probably come back to this here and there, so let's move on. this system has basically three components: the status component, the system effects, which are basically gameplay effects, and the subsystems. And then we have some utility. We come to that little by little. Let's start with the subsystems. So the subsystems, if we go to the character core, are basically health, shield, stamina, mana. These are basically your resources. We have, and I have that in most of my components, is an upgrade. Nothing is actually upgraded in here, but if you want to make an upgrade, this is basically a child blueprint of the main component, and you can do all the changes here without touching the subsystem itself, because this is for everything, and here you could just to don't fuck things up. If we go in here under the values, the defaults, you can see here we have a few things we can set up. For example, here the system type is, if we go to the character, as you can see here, stamina, health, mana, you just set it up and then you say max fuel, and then can steal fuel is basically life steal, maybe for health would make sense. And then we have regeneration. This is important because you can turn off regeneration. Normally I always leave it on and just set everything to 0 if I don't want it, because that way it gives you the opportunity to affect all of these things with system effects or gameplay effects. I think I just say gameplay effects, even though I call them system effects here. You can set here all kinds of stuff. The interval, delay, and value I think are very self-explanatory. You can say max a min tick delay you can set up here, and you can also say stop on positive change, negative regeneration allowed, and stop on negative change, right? So so just you have maximum control over what's happening. Then we have initial fuel, which is basically full is you start at 100%, partial is you start, let's say 0.5 would be 50%, right? So it goes from 0 to 1, 1 being 100. That way you can say, okay, maybe he starts with 50% health or whatever. Yes, and these are all pretty much cover a lot of things, but let's say you do a survival game, and let's say you want something like thirst, so you need, or other things, so you need a couple more resources. What you do is you go to utility, enumerations, and you go to systems, and here you have all the 4 systems I already have implemented. But let's say you want something like thirst, right? Because maybe it's like I said, it's a survival game, your character gets thirsty. You add thirst there. You maybe simply copy this and you call it thirst. Of course, you can also just add, subsystem upgrade and then rename it. I just copy it, it's easier. And then you say here, allow negative regeneration, because we want it to slowly go down. And we say maybe every 5 seconds it goes down by 1. I don't know. Or you can set it up like this, and negative regeneration is important because that way you can say, okay, the regeneration is not just up, it can also go down, right? And now when I compile, yes, it's gonna crash because I changed an enumeration and I had blueprints and stuff open that use these enumeration, and I adjusted them. And Unreal is a little bit picky when I change enumeration while it's still open. That's totally normal, has nothing really to do with the system. It's just how Unreal works. You just open it up again and everything should be, I didn't save before. Okay, go, let's go here, thirst, save, compile. As you can see here after this, because I haven't touched this other stuff, it's totally fine now. But that's basically it. So now you have a thirst thing. Of course, if we go to the demo level, let's go in here. my UI has no thirst. So just to demonstrate that it works, what we're gonna do is we go to the third person character, and let's just pretend stamina is thirst. Okay, let's pretend for a second, and we say every 2 seconds we have negative regeneration, and we lose 5 stamina. Okay, so remember, stamina here, it's the same as thirst. It's just not in the UI. So, but this way I can show you. And now we have here, and now every 2 seconds, as you can see in the bottom left, the yellow one, I lose 5 stamina. So this is very easy to do. So, and we just added thirst. If you want to add, you know, more like hunger, hygiene, whatever, you know, you can do all this stuff, and you can just expand it however you want. And it's very lightweight, and also replicated. So it's also nice if you have a multiplayer survival game or whatever. But yeah, this is it in a nutshell. We come back later to it when we go to like catching when something changes. Well, like, no, actually, let's do this now. If we go to the demo character, you can see this actually under the system graph. We come to that later, but as you can see here, stamina change, shield change. If you go to any of your subsystems and scroll down to events, you can say system changed, which are these, and they also tell you if it increased or decreased. It's a boolean here. So you can, you know, for example, whenever he loses thirst, you maybe want to spawn, I don't know, some droplets like sweat or whatever, right? You can do that here, because whenever something changes, this event will catch it. And also if something is empty, right? Let's say the thirst one is empty, and then you can, I don't know, destroy actor, the character dies, whatever, right? You can expand your code depending on what the subsystem is actually doing. This is very nice. And the same thing we have for our status, but we come to that in a second. Actually, let's do it now. So if we go back to our core and we go to status, here the same thing. This is the main component, and I created an empty like child thing where you can change stuff if you want so. But if we go open this up, we come to that in a second. What is the status component? The status component basically holds everything in terms of your status, right? Like the name says. So, and that is like your armor, how good you penetrate armor, your damage, your crit chance, and your protections like dodge, block, and stuff like that. And the cool thing here is like all of that you can configure depending on your damage type. So as you can see here, armor, I can say I have 80% fire armor, 50% magical, and I don't know, just 10% physical. That means if I get physical armor, physical damage, I only protect, you know, with 10 armor. If I get fire damage, I'm set on fire, I have like nearly fireproof armor, I get nearly no damage. The same thing with pierce, but when you do damage, that's basically used in the calculation when you damage an AI who also uses the system. They will check, okay, how much pierce damage do you have and how much armor do you have? They combine it and then they calculate the damage themselves. The same thing for damage. So you have each damage type, and here you can expand the damage types. It's a simple enumeration where you just add it. We come to that at the end. But here you can also define your damage per damage type. And the same thing with crit and dodge. They are very self-explanatory. The block modifier maybe needs some explanation. It basically means when you block, let's say you get damage to 100 damage, and you block it, the damage you block is basically multiplied by this. So if it's a 0, you get 0 damage because 100 times 0 is 0. But if you say it's like 50, That means when you block 50% of the damage, okay? And all of these values can of course be adjusted by the gameplay effects, to which we come next. So if we go here to core and then system effects, I call them system effects, but they are basically gameplay effects. Basically what this does, you don't really need to change in here. We have also level and stuff, you can take a look. But basically the most important part is system effects. System effects are, you know, they change everything. Like if you go in here, we have a lot of examples. We have the base classes. Duration is just like, I don't know, this is for 10 seconds there. You know, I don't know, you have more armor for 10 seconds. We have dot damage, or, you know, like basically when you set on fire, every 1 second you get damaged. And stuff like this. So we have base classes, and depending on that we have these here. For example, if we go to timer health, here's a regeneration thing. As you can see here, we say, okay, we want to target the subsystem health. Here's also thirst, right? If you want to make, for example, let's say you play your survival game and you go into the desert. So you want to add, subtract in this case, because here you can say add or subtract or divide, and you say 5. So in your regeneration value, the moment you go into the desert, it would be kind of like an overlap or whatever. You add this to your character, and he would, every 2 seconds, he would lose 5 additional like resource, okay? This is kind of like how it works. Or if we go to attack and we say here to this one, what we do here is we add the damage. We add 5 damage to our fire, right? That we do, right? And as you can see here, in this value specification, you always plug in what you want to target if it is something specific. Like before here we had our armor. Now we have our fire because it's a damage type. But if you go, for example, to something like crit chance, this would not be needed, right? Then it would look only like this. But yeah, we have a lot of examples here, so you can take a look, and they're very straightforward, and you can of course combine them. You can always say in one gameplay effect, like we add this, right? So now this gameplay effect, what it would do, it would add our crit chance by 5%, and we would have 100 extra pierce damage for fire as well. Yeah, but and of course you can also do trade-offs. Let's say, okay, we have more crit chance, but in return our block chance is subtracted by, I don't know, 25. You know, this is how you basically do things. And then if you go to class settings here, class default, sorry, you set up the duration, the icon, and is it stackable? And if it is stackable, how many stacks can we have, right? So it's very straightforward. And most of these should get you covered or give you a pretty good idea how the system works, so you can do your own things. Okay? Okay. And now one last thing. Let's add a new damage type. For that we go to utility, enumerations, damage types, and here we have physical, magical, fire that you saw before. And now we add maybe something like, I don't know, thunder, right? So we add that here, we save it. Then we need to go to status, damage type. Here's the base. We can simply create a child blueprint class. So this is always a base, right? And we call this thunder, right? Save, save. And now what we do is here we say armor block. So this is basically the armor that would block this damage type. You can have several. So if you say, okay, it would also be blocked by fire or whatever, right? So You can have multiple. Then you name it. You call this thunder. And then you can see here, okay, is it crittable? Yes. Is it dodgeable? No. Is it blockable? No. But maybe it's dodgeable, actually. Let's just say it's not blockable. And that's it, basically. You have here another few things, but they're not really that important. But this is basically, now we have a new damage type. And if we would go in now to our character, and let's go to status, armor type. We have to change physical to thunder, because physical is the standard one and you cannot have duplicate ones. But now let's say physical was 10 and thunder we have, I don't know, 30 armor against. And the same thing here for damage. We change this to thunder. Maybe it's 40. And now we go here, physical was 10. And that way you can add a new damage type very, very fast. Okay? And yeah, that's a system, and I think it's very straightforward. Like I said, it's also replicated and everything. I hope everything works, should be, but if there's nothing, just write to me and I think I can fix it quite fast. And yeah, I see you next time, and I hope you enjoy the system.